Life in 1600s, colonial America versus modern America. Fade in. A gray mist clings to a dark forest. The faint crack of an axe echoes as a lone colonist swings against a tree, his breath visible in the icy morning air. He has no time for leisure, no safety net, no luxury. His family's survival depends on every strike of that blade. Now imagine a different scene. A glowing phone screen at dawn. The alarm goes off. A hand reaches out lazily, silencing it. Coffee brews automatically in the kitchen. A car waits outside, full tank, ready to carry its driver across paved highways. 2 mornings, 2 Americas, one separated by 4 centuries. The 1600s marked the dawn of colonial life in North America. Settlers from Europe crossed treacherous seas, chasing opportunity, freedom, and survival in an untamed land. For them, every day was a gamble against hunger, disease, and the unknown. Fast forward to today, and the United States has transformed into a global powerhouse. Its citizens live in skyscrapers, stream entertainment instantly, and shop in supermarkets overflowing with choices their ancestors could not even dream of. But this raises a haunting question. How much has really changed? Beneath the comforts of modern life, do we still carry the same fears, desires, and struggles of those early colonists? Or have we evolved into something entirely different? This is the story of 2 Americas, the one carved out of wilderness by grit, sweat, and sacrifice, and the one we live in today, shaped by technology, abundance, and convenience. So sit back, because we're about to journey across 400 years of history, comparing the life of colonists in the 1600s with the life of Americans now. From the food they ate, to the homes they built, the beliefs they held, and the freedoms they fought for. Daily survival and food. For colonists in the 1600s, food wasn't just about taste or preference, it was about life or death. When settlers first arrived in Jamestown, Virginia, in 1607, they faced what history remembers as the starving time. Harsh winters, lack of farming knowledge, and tense relations with Native Americans left them desperate. Men boiled leather shoes to chew on. Some dug up roots and weeds to stay alive. In the most horrifying cases, records suggest cannibalism. Contrast that with America today, where food is so abundant that waste has become one of our biggest problems. Modern Americans throw away nearly 40% of their food supply every year. For a colonist, that level of waste would be unthinkable, criminal even. What did colonists eat? Corn, squash, beans, learned from Native Americans who essentially saved many colonies. Bread made from coarse ground grains when available. Salted or smoked meat, often pork or venison. Fish, oysters, and shellfish along the coast. Foraging for berries, nuts, and wild herbs. Fresh food was rare. Meals were repetitive, plain, and always uncertain. A bad harvest could spell disaster for the entire community. Now compare that to the modern American diet. Endless fast food chains at every corner. Global cuisines available instantly. Mexican tacos, Italian pasta, Japanese sushi. Supermarkets open 24/7, stacked with hundreds of choices. Refrigerators and freezers that preserve food for weeks. The colonists' day often began with labor just to eat. Fields needed plowing, crops needed tending, firewood needed cutting. In contrast, the modern American can have a hot meal delivered to their door in under 30 minutes with just a few taps on a screen. In the 1600s, food was survival. Today, food is comfort, identity, even entertainment. Colonists prayed for one good harvest. We scroll through apps deciding between pizza or sushi, homes and shelter. When a colonist arrived in America, they found no ready-made shelter waiting. The wilderness offered trees, mud, stone, and that was it. The first homes were little more than crude huts with thatched roofs and dirt floors. Smoke from a central fire filled the one-room cabin, blackening the ceiling. Windows, if they existed, were oiled paper instead of glass. In winter, freezing winds cut through every crack. In summer, insects invaded with no mercy. For many settlers, a log cabin symbolized both safety and fragility. Built by hand, timber by timber, it was a shield against nature but never fully secure. Fires could wipe out a settlement overnight. Storms could rip roofs from houses. Now, look around modern America. We live in climate-controlled comfort. Homes with multiple bedrooms, running water, electricity, insulation, and central heating. Skyscrapers soar where forests once stood. Cities glow at night with artificial light so bright it hides the stars the colonists once relied on for navigation. To a colonist, a modern suburban home would look like a palace, complete with glass windows, tiled bathrooms, and kitchens stocked with machines to cook meals in minutes. But here lies the irony. Colonists built homes with their own hands, often side by side with neighbors. That labor created not just shelter, but community bonds. Today we live in stronger, safer houses. Yet many Americans don't even know the names of the people living next door. Clothing and appearance. The colonists' wardrobe. For the colonists of the 1600s, clothing was not about fashion. It was about survival and modesty. Every garment had to be made by hand from the materials they could grow, raise, or trade. Wool, linen, and leather were the staples of their wardrobes. Men wore linen shirts beneath heavy wool coats, breeches that tied at the knee, and leather boots that often had to last for years. Women dressed in long linen shifts with wool skirts layered on top, aprons tied tightly around their waists, and simple bonnets to shield from the sun. Colors were muted: browns, grays, blacks, and dull blues, because dyes were rare and costly. There was no such thing as a closet full of options. Most colonists owned only 2 or 3 sets of clothing in their entire lifetime, and they repaired them constantly. Clothing wasn't replaced because it went out of style. It was patched until it fell apart. Symbolism and identity clothing also reflected social and religious values. For Puritans, modesty was essential. Women were expected to cover their hair and wear long gowns that concealed the body. Jewelry and bright colors were frowned upon as signs of vanity or sin. At the same time, the wealthy elite in the colonies sometimes imported fine silks, lace, or velvet from Europe. Wearing such garments was a statement of status, wealth, and power. But for most colonists, the rough texture of wool or homespun linen was all they knew. Their clothing told a story of hardship and humility, but also resilience. Every stitch represented hours of labor and the will to endure. Clothing in modern America. Now step into modern America. Fashion has become a billion-dollar industry, a form of self-expression, identity, and even rebellion. Instead of rough wool and linen, we wear cotton, polyester, denim, silk, and synthetic fabrics made in massive factories across the globe. Clothing is no longer made to last. It is mass-produced, bought cheaply, and often discarded after a season. The colors are limitless, the designs endless. A teenager in Los Angeles can dress in Japanese streetwear, while a businessman in New York wears Italian suits. The average American owns hundreds of articles of clothing, more than an entire village of colonists combined. Fashion trends shift with dizzying speed. What's stylish today may be mocked tomorrow. Unlike the colonists, who dressed for practicality, Americans today dress to express individuality, status, or cultural belonging. The colonists saw clothing as protection, necessity, and sometimes a symbol of their faith. Modern Americans see it as freedom, creativity, and commerce. Yet, the threads of both worlds carry the same weight. They define how people are seen by others. For the colonist, a clean wool coat meant survival through winter. For the modern American, a brand name logo on a shirt can symbolize belonging, success, or ambition. 2 centuries apart, both reveal the same truth. Clothing is never just cloth. It is a mirror of society itself. Work and Economy 1. Work in the 1600s. Colonies, for the colonists, work was not a choice, it was survival. From the moment the sun rose until it sank, Hands were busy with labor. The colony itself was a fragile experiment, and every man, woman, and even child had a role to play. Farmers rose before dawn, guiding oxen through rocky soil, planting corn and wheat with crude wooden tools. Blacksmiths bent over roaring forges, hammering iron into nails, horseshoes, and tools essential for survival. Carpenters shaped raw timber into cabins, barns, and ships. Women worked endlessly, cooking over open hearths, spinning wool, sewing garments, tending gardens, and raising children. For many, there was no money exchanging hands. Instead, there was barter. A farmer might trade a bushel of corn for a blacksmith's work, or a hunter might exchange furs for salt and flour. Survival depended on the skills of the community, not on coins in a pocket. The harsh reality. Work in the colonies was relentless and unforgiving. There were no weekends, no paid vacations, no safety nets. Injuries could end a man's life, hunger stalked the poor, and a bad harvest could ruin an entire town. The economy was tied directly to the land and to global powers. Colonists exported tobacco, furs, and timber to Europe, while importing goods like iron, tools, and luxury items. This trade kept them connected to the Old World, but it also meant dependency. They were not truly free. The daily rhythm of work was simple: toil or perish. Modern American work and economy. Fast forward to today, and the American economy is one of the most powerful in the world. Work is no longer confined to fields and forges. It exists in skyscrapers, factories, studios, and digital spaces. Instead of bartering goods, Americans work for wages and salaries. A programmer in California can earn money by writing code, while a Wall Street trader in New York moves billions with a keystroke. Farmers still exist, but now they use machines that can harvest fields in hours instead of months. The economy has transformed from local survival to global influence. American industries stretch across the world: technology, entertainment, finance, medicine, space exploration. The colonists could never have imagined a world where people make a living by streaming videos, designing apps, or trading cryptocurrency. And yet, despite all this progress, the modern American worker still feels the same burden: the pressure to provide, the fear of failure, the desire for stability. In the 1600s, work meant breaking your back against the land just to eat and live another day. In the 21st century, work means navigating an economy driven by speed, competition, and constant change. The colonist traded corn for nails. The modern American trades time for money. Both are bound by the same truth: work is the heartbeat of survival. One world was powered by muscle and sweat, the other by electricity and information. But the struggle to endure, to thrive, to create a better future remains unchanged. Health, medicine, and science. Health in the colonies. In the 1600s, health was fragile, and medicine was primitive at best. Colonists lived with the constant shadow of sickness. Malaria, smallpox, dysentery, and fevers swept through settlements with devastating force. Childbirth was perilous, and many mothers never survived it. There were no hospitals, no trained doctors in most colonies, only barber surgeons, midwives, and folk healers armed with herbs, prayers, and crude tools. A simple infection could turn fatal. A broken bone might mean a lifetime of disability. Colonists relied heavily on Native American knowledge of plants, learning to use willow bark for pain or sassafras for fevers. But often, treatments were as dangerous as the illnesses. Bloodletting, leeches, and purging were common, rooted more in superstition than science. The fragile life expectancy. Life expectancy was painfully short. Many children never lived to see their 5th birthday. Adults rarely reached old age. The constant presence of disease meant that survival was never guaranteed, no matter how strong a person might be. For colonists, health was a gamble with fate. Every cough, every fever, could be the start of the end. Medicine and science in modern America. Now, step into modern America, where science has rewritten the rules of life. Hospitals gleam with sterile light. Surgeons wield robotic arms with precision. Doctors prescribe antibiotics, vaccines, and treatments that would seem like miracles to a 17th-century settler. Diseases that once wiped out entire towns can now be prevented with a single shot. Average life expectancy has nearly doubled since colonial times. A woman giving birth today is surrounded by advanced technology, trained professionals, and medicines that keep both mother and child safe. Beyond medicine, science itself has expanded far beyond the colonists' imagination. Telescopes peer into galaxies millions of light-years away. Satellites orbit Earth, and scientists map the human genome. The mysteries of the universe that colonists once explained with superstition are now probed with data, machines, and discovery. The colonists prayed for survival, clutching herbs and hoping for divine mercy. Modern Americans place their trust in doctors, technology, and research. And yet, both worlds share the same thread: the desperate human desire to understand, to cure, and to endure. What was once a world of fear and guesswork has become a world of science and solutions. But the question lingers: have we, in trading faith for knowledge, lost some of the resilience that carried those early settlers through their darkest nights? Education and knowledge won. Learning in the colonies. In the 1600s, knowledge was scarce, and education was a privilege, not a right. For most colonists, survival left little time for books or study. Children worked alongside parents in the fields, kitchens, and workshops from an early age. Still, in Puritan New England, there was one subject that mattered above all: the Bible. Reading scripture was seen as essential for salvation. In fact, Massachusetts passed a law in 1647 requiring towns to establish schools so children could learn to read and resist the old deluder, Satan. Lessons were harsh and simple. Students scratched letters on wooden boards or slates. Books were rare, expensive treasures, often passed down through generations. Writing materials were limited, and mistakes meant discipline. A child's education might last only a few years before the demands of farm and family pulled them away. For most colonists, knowledge came not from classrooms, but from experience: planting crops, hunting, building, and surviving in a world where every mistake could be costly. Knowledge as power education in the colonies also reflected deep inequality. Boys were more likely to be taught than girls. The wealthy sent sons to Europe for advanced study, while the poor struggled to read at all. Enslaved people were often forbidden to learn, as knowledge was seen as dangerous power. Yet, within this fragile system, the seeds of a new idea were planted: that education could shape not just individuals, but entire societies. These early colonial schools laid the foundation for America's obsession with literacy and learning, education in modern America. Fast forward to today, and education is considered a basic right. Children across the nation attend public schools, with free access to knowledge that colonists could barely dream of. Classrooms now buzz with technology: computers, tablets, and smart boards. Information is no longer trapped in rare books. It lives in the cloud, accessible to anyone with an internet connection. College and universities offer paths to specialized knowledge in every imaginable field, from engineering to philosophy. Modern America believes in lifelong learning. Adults return to school, workers train in new skills, and anyone can access free courses online. A child in a small town can learn coding, space science, or world history at the same pace as a student in a major city. The contrast. In the colonies, knowledge was survival for the soul and a scarce privilege for the few. In modern America, knowledge is abundant, sometimes overwhelming, and accessible to nearly all. The colonist scratched letters on a slate by firelight. The modern student scrolls through endless libraries on a glowing screen. Yet both share the same truth: knowledge has always been power. For the colonists, it meant resisting ignorance and clinging to faith. For modern Americans, it means mastering technology, shaping careers, and navigating an ever-changing world. From candlelight to fiber optics, the journey of learning reveals not just how far we've come, but how much further we still have to go.